All right, I'm going to turn on the linear here so that actually comes through. Right. QRZ, is this frequency in use? Is this frequency in use? All right. There had been some interest in contesting, and if you actually go into the observatory, there's a big sort of wooden display case that used to be up at Milks Road. When we vacated Milks Road, we brought it here. And if you look in that display case, it actually has a number of contest awards that W2OW era had had gotten, like the Western New York or whatever, the best score for that particular contest. And I've been a ham now for closing in on 55 years, and contests I just thought were a neat way to again, hone my skills, but also get some new countries, new states, whatever. And whenever we've done field day up here or New York State USO party, I love getting on, and I love being on the receiving end of a pilot. So and some people had wanted to know a little bit more about that and some of the techniques that the contesters can use. And I will say that I am not really at all a hardcore contester, but also I know that Rick NN2K, who collaborated with me on this, where is Rick?
Right here.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a hardcore contester either. I do enjoy it.
Right, exactly. So we'll talk a little bit about contesting and some techniques. And we actually, in putting this together, both Rick and I learned a couple of things that we didn't know about contesting. That there's some new resources that are out there. So what does contesting do for us? Well, clearly it gives us an opportunity to test our stations, but then you start improving your operating skills, just like anything else. You do something enough, you often get better. Not always, but also,
this is still recording.
it's still, yeah, I'm still recording. Yeah, you can break it up there if you want. Okay. Then also you start learning more about the hobby and how propagation affects how you might operate, and also some new technology that's being the contesters are and hams in general are using. It's also an opportunity to collect new countries, new states, new counties if you are into chasing those. And bottom line, it's really just an opportunity to get on the air and have fun. So let's talk about station setup. So depending on what contest it is that you're going to be operating, you're going to decide what transceiver or what transceivers you're going to use to make that happen. And also what modes you're going to use. And so I mean, when you're sort of getting ready, ready to check out your gear, I give you something you want to do, a couple of days in advance as opposed to 10 minutes in advance. But it occurred to me also that one of the things you can do is test yourself by your club member, listen to yourself on the remote. So get on the air, but then on the internet, connect up to the RC4 remote and on that and see what you sound like. See if you're overmodulating your microphone or undermodulating. Of course, just get on and make some QSOs and just ask people what they think it sounds like. Of course, you're going to want to make sure that your antenna's in top shape, and like I at home before I got the new rig that I have that has the auto tuner built into it. I had an external tuner, and what I would do is about every 50 kilohertz or so, I would do a test across the whole band of where each of those the capacitors and the inductor should be to minimize the SWR. So I would, I get myself pretty close to it and then the frequency and then do the final little tweak. Especially if you start changing bands or, around, as opposed to having to figure that out. So having that, all laid out in advance is certainly a helpful thing. Then we start getting into accessories. So again, having a microphone that you're comfortable with. One thing that actually the club, it was something that was donated to the club. We haven't really implemented yet. Is a voice keyer. Especially when you're doing long duration contests, your voice can give out on you. And so the voice keyer is actually something that you can record like CQ, New York State CUSA party. This is Whiskey 2 Ocean Whiskey, Whiskey 2 Ocean Whiskey, Broome County, QR's, CQ. Really.
I just wanted to mention, a lot of the new rigs have that capability built in.
Yeah, right. Or it's an option that you can buy for your rig. Yeah, exactly. So there's certainly hardware you can buy for that, but there's also software you can buy for that. So again, if you've got a way to interface either direct with your USB or through like a signal link connection, you can have a number of things preset up in there, so that if it's going to be a standard response, you can say QSL 5.9 Broome County or 5.9 Western New York QSL, and you can save yourself a little time there. If you're getting into CW, again, having a good key that works for you, as well as the same thing. There's keyer memories that you can have. You can put those predefined exchanges right in there. One thing for me that I find, especially whenever we've worked, either field day or the New York State CUSA party, having a set of headphones and comfortable headphones. That's the other thing. You can get those sort of cheap foamy ones that are good for about a half an hour. Then after that, your ears really start to get itchy and everything else. So getting a good set of headphones. If you happen to also have a logger, somebody who also is going to be listening, getting a Y adapter so that the both of you have the headphones going. And then the other thing that I use at my home station is a foot switch for the transmit, and I'll talk more about that because it gives both my hands availability to do other things, either be on the keyboard or whatever. We sort of talked earlier a little bit about this, but logging is key on contesting. Now again, many of us started out with paper logs. Some of us still do paper logs. However, there's some real power and more than just electrical power to actually using a computer. Some of the software that's out there now is extraordinary, and we've used it here when we do our field day. This N3FJP software it's been a great resource for us, and we'll get a little deeper into that here. So you don't have to pay for logging. There are free logging applications out there. N1MM apparently is one of the most popular free logging software that's out there. I believe that's only for PC. If you're a Mac person, there are Mac logging software, but I didn't really even though I'm a Mac person, I didn't really want to focus there. So just do an internet search on ham radio logging free, and there'll be easily a dozen different ones that you can find. Then there are other paid logging programs that perhaps offer maybe some certain features that you might not see in the free. The N3FJP software that we use, actually he actually has different versions that you can download for each contest. So it knows the sections or the exchanges that happen to that you need for that particular contest. And also when you then go to submit, most of the contests these days now, you submit a Cabrillo format file. No longer are you sending paper logs in, for contests. That's gone. Hammer-Reader Deluxe is another logging software. And again, some of these software will, again, if you've got a rig that has a USB interface, allows you to, it'll track what mode you're in, sideband or CW or digital, or what frequency you are. So you don't have to sit there and change that on your log. Again, another important part is to this logging software is tracking duplicates, tracking dupes. Not everybody, some people, not to dump on paper logs, but especially you may have a contest where you have different, like a club will have a bunch of different people on at various times, and unless they've got good software that's checking the dupes, you type it in and all of a sudden, like with the N3FJP software, it says possible dupe, and so that helps you sort of move on very quickly. And I mentioned earlier, again, having a separate logger. Like I know that I've done it here with Neil and John and my wife Leanne and N2PM. When you have another person logging, especially for some of those weaker stations, somebody will get something, or at least allow you to confirm that, or oh no, I think it's this, and so that helps speed things along. Plus, also, you're not also having to type and talk, and I mean, some people can do that. It's certainly an acquired skill. But again, having a separate logger, but also then, if that person's comfortable, then you switch after an hour. Let me just double back briefly on some of the voice keyer thing. There have been times when I've been on contests and I hear somebody saying W2, CQ, W2, W, and then when I finally make the contact, okay, man, here's it's a completely different person. So that the voice keyer was set up with the first person, whatever, and that it's a completely, it could be a YL, a young person, whatever. So it's sort of interesting to see that. And recently, I tried to do a search on this, and I didn't find any hits on it. There was a contest where, I called. It was a phone contest, and so I called, give my call sign, and it was sort of a KA1M 59 Illinois 59 Illinois. So it was clearly somebody was doing text to speech. So this might be somebody with either a speech impediment or otherwise would have difficulty making that contact, and the technology now is out there. You can just type that in, and so has anybody else heard that? I guess I'm the only one, or a couple of people. All right, yeah. So it's interesting what how technology keeps offering new options to improve. Again, there's nothing that you have to do any of this, but it's just it's something else for you that's out there to explore. And again, also most of these contest loggers will do automatic backup. So you want to make sure that whenever you choose your logging software that it is in fact backing up. And also what I do whenever I do a contest is when the contest is done, I make a separate copy of that log before I do anything to it, before I dedupe it, and I put it elsewhere, somewhere on my computer, so that if and when I screw up, I can go and yeah, let's try that again and bring it over. So then there's the approach that you want to take, or that you'll take, and I call it the hunting versus hunted. we're hunting, you're scanning the bands for stations. You are sitting there, tuning the dial and listening for people, either QRZ or CQ. Versus hunted, where you basically sit on a frequency and you create and work a pilot. So let's sort of talk about techniques around that. Where hunting is, again, you're scanning the bands. And so you can do that by tuning the dial. There are also a number of spotter websites. So especially with contests or special events, there are spotter networks, DXSummit.fi, DXWatch, any other spotter networks that people use out there? Right. And what's nice about these, and when we get, when this is done, I'll go out to DX Summit and you can filter on things. So if you know you're on 40 meters and you're on 40 meters phone, you can filter out all the other bands and all the other modes and just say, what do I see on, on this band? Conversely, you can also use it to say, okay, well, I'm on 40, geez, it's really starting to die out. What's 20 looking like right now? And then, so you go and filter on 20 and you could see generally what kind of activity you're seeing. These spotter networks will list both the station that was contacted, but also the station doing the contacting. So you can see, oh gosh, I see the West Coast is open. People from the East are talking to the West Coast, or geez, Japan is open. Oh, it's because it was a station in California talking to Japan. So maybe that's not going to work for me. So those are good resources that you can use to get a sense of what's out there. And again, the other thing with these spotter websites, again, if you're trying to look for certain multipliers for your again, typically with a contest, you'll have the number of contacts that you make, but then if it's a worked all states contest, you're getting a multiplier for every state that you work. So, geez, I need Arkansas, and I look for Arkansas to show up on the spotter network. It'll tell you what frequency they're on, and sometimes people even put comments on there like great operator or listening up 5 or something like that. So now that you're hunting and you found a station that you want to work in, they are the pilot. Very often you're going to find out, there's a lot of other people that are trying to contact you contacted them at the same time. And so there's this big sort of rush of, and eventually the station will start talking to one of those people that they hear. One of the techniques I found is that, one of the things that inexperienced operators, we'll just leave it at that, do is they'll sit there and give their call sign 8 times. KA1M, KA1M, Kilo Alpha 1 Mike, Kilo Alpha 1 Mike, KA1M, KA. Meanwhile, when I finally, let go, that person's already 3/4 of the way through the contact with another person. So basically, you're just calling QR. You're just causing QRM by just calling your call sign. You only really need to send your call sign out maybe twice. But sometimes what I find is that if you sort of listen to how quickly that person responds to a call, you can say, all right, well, it's about maybe 3 or 4 seconds. And so right around 2.5, 3 seconds, that's when I start calling. Because then what happens is everybody else that's been calling, they stopped calling, but it's just this big mush on the receive end for that person. Your call now is one of the last things that person is going to hear, and he or she may get even a portion of the station ending in Mexico. Then you're able to cut through. So that's been the technique that's been really helpful for me, is get a sense of how quickly the guy listens, responds back, and then try to sort of cut in just toward the end there and see if sometimes that's sort of easier. It's low hanging fruit for that person, because at least that's a call sign that I for sure cut through. So that's what I call lagging. And then using standard phonetics and use sort of short, crisp phonetics. Yokohama is a bit of a long, versus Yankee. But also have a couple of like when we do it here, we'll go whiskey to Ocean Whiskey or whiskey to Oscar Whiskey. Or you might find a couple of one other phonetic letter that if for some reason the person isn't quite hearing, maybe a different version of that letter might cut through. Again, mostly what I'm talking about here tends to be more phone oriented, voice oriented. I know that Rick and Tom both do CW. So if you guys have any thoughts about any techniques on CW, I think the lagging thing could also work a little bit for that as well.
Pretty much the same way.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might want to be a slightly off frequency, a little up or a little down.
Right. With CW, right. Rather than everybody all on the same, if you're up or you're separating yourself from everybody else, and that's enough to sort of cut through. Then there's the hunted side of things, and to me, this is the most challenging part. Sometimes it's frustrating, but I think, at least for me, is the most rewarding. So the key here is finding a clearish frequency. I tend to stay away from like 14240 or 14250. I tend to be more in the middle, like 252. But again, the right thing to do is say QRZ frequency. Do that a couple of times, and then sit there. That becomes your frequency. Keep your CQs relatively short, but keep them coming pretty often. Here's where that voice keyer really helps a lot. Then when finally somebody starts calling you, I know some people have a tendency to want to write down the call on a piece of paper first. What I do is I start typing right into the logging software because I can always go back and correct it, as opposed to if I finally get the call down WB2EFY, now I've got to go now I have to stop and start typing it into my computer. Whereas if I screw up one letter, it's just maybe a backspace or two, and I'm done. The other problem with that, especially people on a pileup, and sometimes when you're hunting, you have this as well. There's so many people on the band that there'll be people above you or below you, and if you've got a rig that has either IF shift and bandwidth, where you can squeeze the bandwidth a little bit, you can very often reduce that QRM, the stuff that's really up higher or down low, enough to be able to make that QSO a little more easier to pull out of the mud. Then when so I finally got that contact going. I've sent them my information. They send me theirs. I would then call back and say QSL on your 59 Virginia. Thanks, QRZ Kilo Alpha 1 Mike. And I was talking with Rick earlier about this. It really bugs me that people that are on a pilot will just say QRZ. Hey, who are you? Did I work you before? You sometimes sit there for 10 minutes waiting for that person. I mean, technically, you don't have to. It's every 10 minutes you're supposed to identify yourself. But I think it's more of a common courtesy. It doesn't take long to put your call out there, and this way also, people aren't, once they hear you and say, "Oh yeah, that's new station," and off you go. That's also one of the things that, again, when you're hunting, having that logging software, you put in, AB2HS, and it'll tell you whether or not you've worked them before. And again, most of the software also knows enough that if this particular contest, that I can work AB2HS on multiple bands, as long as I've on a different band that I worked for before, then we're good. And as I sort of mentioned, sort of once you're there, stick on that clear frequency, and hang there as long as you can. One of the things that Rick and I were, when we were preparing this, there was actually on QRZ, there was a interviewer of a really rabid contester, and he had a great idea. He said, stay on the highest band that's open. The bands, the propagation always changes, but if 10 is open, you should be working 10. You can always, again, keep on, look on the spotter network and see what else is going on some of the other bands, but hang on that band until you really sort of milk it dry. And then finally, some sort of additional resources. There's a great website called Contest Calendar that lists all these, practically any contest that's on. And I'll get out of this PowerPoint. I'll show you that. And what's also nice about it, you can, when it shows you the list, it'll actually give you a link to that website for the contest, and you can dive down deeper into it. And one thing that, again, Rick and I had just learned through this other presentation, there's a website now. It's called 3830 Scores. Before the internet, all these really heavy duty contesters at the end of a contest would go on 3830 and just say, hey, how'd you do? Oh, I had 560 contacts and 87 multipliers, and they would just sort of talk amongst each other. Now it's a website that literally minutes or hours after a contest, you can sort of see where you stack up by when you put your information in. And one of the things also that this gentleman talked about is that don't go into a contest to try to win it. There are people out there that have unbelievable stations and have these stack beams running, kilowatt and a half. And those are the guys that are going to win the big DX contest. But again, it's also as I said, an opportunity if you want to chase worked all states or worked all counties or WPX or whatever, PXCC. It's a great opportunity to cash in on some of those things. So let me get out of this here and stop this. I was going to go to those couple of sites to show you. So,
Drew, quick question. On that for stay on the highest band.
Right.
Why is that? Because you would logic would have it that okay, if it's daytime, it's a contest. Well, probably 20 meters is going to be the one that's going to be open.
Mm-hmm.
Why go to 10 meters?
No. It did. I guess maybe I should have said stay on the highest band that's open.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like you're also sort of playing with the propagation because as time goes on, typically 10 meters is gonna collapse first, then 15, then
okay.
So because 40 and 80, well 40 in particular, you'll more likely be able to use almost any time, but the higher level, the higher bands will collapse sooner, and so milk those guys dry, milk that band dry.
While you can.
Right, exactly. So here's that DX summit that I was talking about. Oh, actually, hold on, I gotta turn on the screen for those watching remotely. And where is it? There we go. So this, I think, updates once a minute or once every 10 or 15 seconds. And so like right now here is the DX is P44X. He's on it they're on FT8, and it was listened to by this JI1 CPN. Here's EP4CHD. Let's just see what that is. opening QRZ.
It's Iran.
What? It's Iran?
Iran.
Yeah.
Iran.
There you go. So that person in Iran is, where is it? And that was a station in, on FTA. Well, yeah, they were on FTA and there was a station down in Forland. So, and right now, I don't have any filters turned on, but I can go up and say, all right, let's look at, phone. And let's, include, 80 meters, 40 meters, 20 and 21 megahertz. I can set those filters. And so right now, like the station in Japan is on 21,295. It was, talked to by a guy who's, said, well, potentially in New England. And so you can, here's a POTUS station. What else? 9H1TT. QRZ. Nope, I gotta log in.
Malta.
You gotta do what it can.
All right, yeah. And if we go back here and, where is it? Lost it.
What the hell?
It updates very fast.
Yeah. So, yeah, this really is a, an extraordinarily useful, thing. Again, and it's not just for contests. You can use this anytime you're on. It's okay. So, yeah, so this XQ6 is on Chile. Malta, 91, right, Malta.
So can you set that up so you can see what state they're in?
I don't think so. Well, it would require, yes, and normally people look at the DX and not the spotter. Well, okay, here's IPA, National Police Week Club Stat. So, I think it just gives country, but a person can put in, information like this person put in the POTA number for this NK4, NK4Q. Let's see what else there. Island of Textile in Netherlands.
It's also really easy while we're up here doing the contest. Do it on your phone.
Yeah,
There's many times I've sat on my phone and just, so you're not tying up the computer, you're using the log. And also, if you want to be the hunted, spot yourself.
right.
And up here, we'll often call on like N2E and GW2OW, and there's frequency that Drew's
Yeah.
on. And then people, see that I spotted.
Right, so
WW.
like with
You spot
the,
yourself,
like a New York State CUSA party, you can put it in the comments, you go Broome County.
and they pile on. you.
Yeah, and then you sort of create your own pilot.
But you gotta keep doing that, by the way.
Right.
It updates very fast.
Trying to think here. Oh, yeah, let's look at that 3830 scores. 3830 scores. Okay.
There's a
There's
dash,
a dash in it. You put a dash in it.
Yeah,
no dash.
Finger check.
all right, so there we go. Let's see, worldwide SAM, May 16th.
Nothing.
Okay, so that's, so the current contests, or recent contests here, let's go. 7th area QSO party. This is contest summaries, activity trackers. I'm sort of really, discovering this, we discovered this, today. So, that was the other thing I was gonna show you was the, contest calendar. Here we go.
Wow.
All right, you can get, it's an 8-day calendar, 5-week, 12-month. All the state QSO parties. If you're in the CW only, it'll filter for that. So here, let's look at the 8-day calendar. So, right now, there's this VHF UHS digital contest that's happening right now. This weekend, Saturday to Sunday, is His Majesty King of Spain contest, CW, a European PSK contest, Arkansas QSO party. So if you need Arkansas for worked all states, this is your weekend. Let me see, that's this, we can go to the next weekend. Now let's try this one, here we go. So, CW Worldwide WPX contest in CW is May 27th and 28th. Again, so now I can just go to that. It'll take you, right down here, and if you want, you can actually find the rules it'll take you right to the contest website. So, any other input from Tom or Ed? Yeah.
N3FJP, that's like our go-to software. We use it for all our contests. And if you go there to buy it for yourself, I recommend the suite. You can buy like a field day. You can buy one for the other contest and just that individual. But the suite is like, you get everything they have and everything they are going to have if new contests come out. And it's like the cost of like 2 or 3 separate.
Yeah.
So almost everybody buys the suite.
And it's interesting because like usually on field day, we almost talk to them every field day.
Yeah, you mean blogging real quickly, you realize you'll type in and
Right.
N3FJP.
And yeah, so you can
Does anybody use hammers?
hammers.
Yeah, I downloaded that on mine. That's what I'm using for POTA, and it has contesting, and I'm just curious if anybody's tried that.
Right.
That one's free and
It's HAMMERS.
HAMRS.
Oh,
And actually, that one downloads to your phone also.
hammers logging software.
Yeah.
And it's free.
It's free.
Yeah. So
On the phone part is, I think it's $5 or
Yeah.
something.
yeah, so it looks like
It's really easy to use, it's simple, real simple.
and it looks like it's it's showing you like a map here of like potentially where your station is located and who you've talked to and what directions. So it's some pretty neat stuff. Again, I think ultimately it's not so much that we necessarily win a contest, but it's more just improving your skills, feeling comfortable. And then you start tuning your ear to start picking out those call signs, especially for new hams. It can be all just one big mush, but eventually you start processing it, in your head, and you really can have a lot of fun. I think when we did the last field day, Leanne and I sat for about 3 hours, and we probably had 180, 200 contacts. Sometimes we'd have 2 or 3 contacts in a minute. Then there'd be a gap of like, how much going on, and then another, 3 or 4 or 5, and then, so, it can be done. And I would say, I know that, like Rick and I and Tom are pretty casual contesters, but we can rack up a score with just a little bit of planning, and you just keep developing your skill. Ed, a question?
You talking about it brought up something for me when I used to contest. It was like an escape. You put the headphones on, you got the thing out, you're listening, and after about 10 or 15 minutes, you're in that world for a couple hours. You don't know if the sun's shining, you don't know if you got money in the bank. Your whole focus is you're hearing a guy, oh, I hear him, and you're gonna work him there. Your whole world becomes that. It's like they call it an escape.
It is an escape. It is one of the concern is not the right word. One of the problems is that, especially if you're working CW, try to go to sleep after that. All you're doing is just hearing CW, but it's just It's just down in the mud. That's all you hear. Yeah,
One of the things that gets me is, as you said earlier, you get some of these stations out there that have these huge antenna farms and you're running max power. And you get in and you start hearing, like a Caribbean island that you know there's only 2 stations on.
yeah,
And you want to work them and you're limited to 100 watts. And suddenly you punch through the pile up and you hear your call sign come back.
yeah. Do the happy dance, yeah, exactly. But again, this, right, I mean, that, also sometimes people, what people will do, and especially if you're on the hunted side of things, is, I've heard them say, all right, we're gonna take the next 5 minutes and we're gonna take QRP only. And specifically for those stations that are purposefully running low power and gives them a fighting chance. And you can tell that somebody is, running 1.5 kilowatts and says he's QRP. Yeah, Joe.
If you have any questions about what he's talking about and what experiences you have had, I had an experience 2 years ago and I wasn't doing very well, but things started to soften up. And WAW, anyway, the headquarters.
Yeah, WAW, yeah, WAW.
And by this time, things started to go down. And I tried it. And it was the first time that I had ever talked on radio to the headquarters. And the guy, you have to listen to him because he puts everything that he just talked about out there and they know what to do. So if you're not sure at the beginning, just listen to how things go.
Yeah. And, well, anyway, so I mean, that's, like I said, again, I think ham radio is just such a great, hobby from, it covers people from the 5 years old to 105, people that are, are techies, that want to experiment, people that want to do public service, this is sport. In fact, there are radio contests, that, nations will put together teams and they will have everybody gets the same 100-watt transmitter with a end bit half wave or some antenna. And then they have a weekend where they go and try to, rack up the largest score for their country. And these are sort of
That's what they
hardcore.
learned, right?
Right. It's interesting. The gentleman we watched that video for, I don't know if you caught this at the end, Rick. He said, you just decide, every year you set aside a certain amount of money, for your ham radio station. So for me, it's like, so it's $2,000 a year that I'll spend on my ham radio station. I'm thinking, ooh, I don't think I've ever spent that much total on ham radio. This guy spends it every year, but he's got multiple antennas. I mean, again, there's a club called the Yankee Clipper Contest Club, YCCC, and these again are the real hardcore contesters, and so yeah, they will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That fellow you're talking about is Kilo Flag Zulu Delta.
Right.
That's his, the big contester.
Randy Thompson, yeah.
Yeah.
And now he's an extra. He was in Uxbridge, Massachusetts.
Yeah, if you go to his biography, it should a link to his station.
No, yeah.
Wow.
CQ Contest Hall of Fame, 2008. He was on the cover of CQ magazine. Station tour. Oh, here, let's do that. Tower 1, 100-foot room, 45, 160 meter elevated ground plane, 80 meter inverted V, Cookcraft 40, 2-element at 110 feet, high gain, upper and lower high gain, yeah. At 150 feet, another high gain at 66 and 33 feet. Tower number 2, oh, grown 25, just as, you know, the little one. With LTA 6 element, 10 meters at 90 feet rotary, Cushcraft. Yeah. Tower number 3,
Jeez.
THDX, TH7DXX.
Yeah, that's all QRP equipment, man.
Yeah. So he's got an Elecraft K3 with an alpha, so this is a linear, another K3 with a linear. He uses this right log software, W5XD, I've heard of that.
Wait, and this guy only spends $2,000 a year? How long's he been doing this? 30 years?
Yeah.
It's been at it a while.
You got $20,000 worth of stuff right there.
Okay, let's see, it's 2023 ERLDX contest sideband. Let's see what it said. 3,242 QSOs with a 462 multipliers, giving him a total score of 4.5 million.
Here's the antennas at different heights, they'll
Right,
adjust the height for what propagation, how far away the stations are.
right. So you find a station you want, you sit there and you flip between between your antennas and see which one brings it in the best.
We better have a lot of 50-50.
Okay, interesting. We talked about this earlier. This is,
80-20.
comments they put, considered going unassisted, which means unassisted means that if you're not using a spotting network, that's considered unassisted. If you are using a spotting network, then you're so that's some contests they actually have a separate category for people using spotting networks versus not. But he says, I didn't want to spend the weekend listening to people not sending their calls. And that was the thing I complained about earlier.
Well, they don't send their call because they already have a big pile up. And if they throw their call out again, then
Yeah, but the problem is, you know, maybe it saves you a second and a half. But the people that are trying to, you know, I'm hunting and I'm scanning like, who the hell is that guy? You know, well,
that's what they're thinking. I already got a pile up.
So-
I don't need anybody
so yeah,
else.
so what he's saying is that with that, he can end up, you know, look for that frequency and say, what is that station that's there? Yeah, Joe?
When things start to go down slower,
All right,
okay, then he'll give you your call, his call sign.
yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Just not courteous to the other people, that's all.
right.
You could tell that the demand is not there, and he may move too, so.
All right, so interesting, he even shows his contact rate. From 0 Zulu to 1 Zulu. One contact on 160, 27 on 80, 5 on 40. So he was moving around. 184 contacts in 1 hour.
He ain't got any kids either.
Or Hawaii.
Yeah, he towers, dude. School kids.
What do you think he has to climb in those towers?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's logging all that.
Yeah,
Cats sleeping on the microphone.
so there you go. I mean, that's again. So this guy is clearly
Yeah, some of those towers are easy to climb, those 25 Gs are about 22 feet or just fit side by side.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
If someone else spots you, does that count as assisted or?
no. It's if you're using the software.
No.
Right. Interesting. This is his. Oh, if you look over here, you can see some of those antennas. Here's tower 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it. I guess his house is over here.
What's he using for a feed line, probably a hard line.
Probably use, or yeah, LR 400 or something. Yeah.
These two
radiating everything in the city.
For some reason, the neighbors have a lot of problems.
Oh, they're electronics.
The IT guys owe the neighbors a lot.
Anyway, so,
They're at the top of the hill.
anyway, it's worth, you know, trying different, you know, different contests, see what might tickle your fancy, again, it's just a neat way to, meet new people. I was commenting, I can't remember, oh, actually, I was talking to one of the guys that upgraded to extra, but he had to leave. I told the story how I was on my honeymoon and I was in Austria. And I was there in October and I was in Innsbruck and I wanted to go to the top of the mountain. I wanted to be at the top of the Alps and take a look at what it must be like up there. So we get in the gondola, we go up to the top of the hill and, you know, we look around and it's just absolutely gorgeous, you know, beautiful day. And then I see this building with some antennas on there. So of course I'm just sort of automatically, you know, attracted to it. And then, I see something in German, so something or other, radio Amtarish. Like, there's a potential. So, you know, I hear some voices on the inside. So I knock on the door and opens up and I speak English. And she says, yes, and says, is this a ham radio station? Yes, amateur radio is our hobby. Well, I'm KA1M. Well, he literally grabbed me by the jacket and pulled me into the building. It was their club. Their club station was on top of this mountain in Innsbruck, Austria. And they were up there doing some work on the station. They had a 3 or 4 element beam on there, but the interesting part that I saw, the rotor was basically like a submarine periscope, you know, kind of a thing where you saw a big compass on the ceiling that had, you know, 0, north, east, you know, south and west. You would sit there and turn it, and then you would lock it in place because up there, with the winds and everything, a mechanical rotor is never going to work.
An Armstrong.
It's the classic Armstrong rotor, exactly. But then when they found out we were on our honeymoon, well, the wine came out, the sausage came out, and I tell people I realize I'm deviating from the contesting thing, but it's like that's what ham radio I think is so neat, that these people had no idea who I was, and immediately I was just a long lost friend, and here, you know, come join us, help, and we'll celebrate your getting married. So anyway, any questions out in the live stream, or do we lose everybody? All right, I will just say that listen, they're done as well. So
Good presentation.
I'm sorry.
Good presentation there.
Oh, thanks, Alan. I
Very
appreciate
good.
it. It's all right. Well, anyway, Rick, yeah.
I just want to say it's all about having fun.
That bottom line, yes, it's really all about having fun, and when it becomes tedious or becomes like, you know, frustrating when you're pulling your hair out, then it's time to start doing something else, or, you know, or do it differently. Yeah.
Well, I agree. We used to do this 20 years ago up at Milks Road. And we did quite well at some of the CQ World line, and we never set out to
win.
It was always who's coming, bring the food.
Yeah.
And everybody enjoyed themselves. And if we happened to do well, it just worked out that way. But it was not the focus.
But also, especially in a club environment, we have an opportunity to sort of learn from each other. And
and we'd sit somebody that hadn't been on the radio. Here's the mic. And somebody would log for them, and all they had to do was read the next call sign on the list.
Right.
So even if you're inexperienced, you could do good at it too.
They sat me down next to Grumpy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, oh boy, oh,
K2H.
you got turned back.
Good thing I was in the Marine Corps.
Wait, what do you have for it?
Okay, yeah, something that I have to say about too, some of you folks have got some new radios. or what have you, like you guys got the 710s or what have you. You want a good chance to see how the features on your radio work out. Take a contest, and I'll tell you, I've already found it, like with my FTBX 10. You get the contest and the stuff coming in close, you find out what that variable bandwidth and the shift and what have you, what that'll do for you. Versus one of my Elmers taught me a long time ago. He says your best filler is right between your ears. He says when you're working the contest, when you're actually going for the contacts and what have you, he says don't bother messing with all the fillers. Use your ears and let your brain filter it. Because by the time you're tweaking all the controls, but I've got to say from the casual listener or down around, just basically most of mine has been the just listening around and answering some people, and but kind of nice that having used some of the entry level rigs and then using the one I got now, that hey, I can actually get rid of some of that chatter in the pond next to me and what have you. So it's a good way to find out what all your filtering's for.
That's true. It's, the contest isn't won by, you mentioned the towers and the guys of it. It's not that they have a big mouth. It's that they can hear the guy in Europe in the apartment. It's that they got the ear.
Yeah.
That's what wins the contest, not the mouth.
Yeah, it's interesting too, working some of those guys that you're up and you'll hear them, they're running this many element beam and we're running a kilowatt. And I come on with my 100 watts, the unfed half wave. Hey, 5.9.
Right.
And I'll listen to somebody else and hey, they're just as good, and and maybe S units are a little different.
Right. 5.9 and 5.9 40 still sounds the same. Just the needles in a different spot in the needle. All right. Let's see here. Somebody in the chat. Let's. Oh, all right. Steve, glad you enjoyed that as well. So, all right. Well, again, this is just sort of off the cuff kind of a thing. We've got, POTA is actually sort of not exactly a contest, but there's some techniques that we can use with POTA. So, particularly on POTA, you end up being the hunted.
Yeah.
So, give that a shot, and let's get out there and make some contacts. So
Be courteous.
Yeah.
always. That's also the thing is, I found in particular when you're making a contact with somebody that maybe is you can tell is sort of a new operator. Take a moment and just say, hey, it's great, glad to have you, have you with us. You're sounding great. Keep at it. Give them some encouragement.
Right.
Sometimes there are those really weak signals that you try for about a minute or two, and it's just saying, hey, it's just not working. Try coming back in a little bit. Maybe propagation will change, and it does happen. So at some point you do have to sort of cut bait and move on, but at least give people a shot for a little bit and try and pull that out. All right, well, thanks again. Our next meeting is going to be here on June 19th. That's just prior to the field day. So we'll say 73 all. Thanks for those joining us on the live stream, and drive safe.
All right, let's have some.